In our previous video, we thought about the capture of the Ark of God by the Philistines. Maybe you're wondering about what happened to the Ark following that. Well, we're going to read a little about that today from 1 Samuel chapter 5, and it's verses 1 to 4. And the Philistines took the Ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. When the Philistines took the Ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon, and set it by Dagon. And when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again. And when they arose early on the morrow morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord, and the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. It was a sad fact that the children of Israel had lost their sense of God's holiness and had failed to handle holy things in a proper way. Bringing the Ark of God onto a battlefield was entirely wrong, and we know it. Yet I think that it is important to recognize that the fact that God had set out a detailed pattern for the tabernacle service in the books of Leviticus and Numbers, that reminds us that God wanted his people to be involved in holy things. God has always wanted us to share in his plans and purposes, but it always has to be on God's terms rather than on ours. It's vitally important that holy things are treated in a holy way, in keeping with God's holy character, rather than according to our fallen ideas and our notions. However, what we have read today reminds us that God does not really need us in order to maintain his honour and his dignity in this world and to fulfill his purpose. The Philistines took the Ark of God and brought it into the house of Dagon. That's what we read in verses 1 and 2. Dagon was the Philistines' idol. I think that the idea was to give the impression that because the Israelites had been defeated, their false god had had the victory over Jehovah. What a surprise they had the following day when they discovered that Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord, as we read in verse 3. They had to lift the idol back into its place, which in itself showed the powerlessness of false gods. As Isaiah described in his prophecy, they bear him upon the shoulder, they carry him and set him in his place, Isaiah 46 verse 7. But the following morning, Dagon had fallen again, and the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off. Only the stump of Dagon was left. Verse 4. No head, no hands, no hope. It is a very vivid picture to me of the triumph of the Lord Jesus Christ at the cross. What seemed to be a defeat was actually the means by which God would deliver sinners from their sins. Paul described it this way, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is, the devil. Hebrews chapter 2 verse 14. There is a lovely hymn that captures the same thought in these words. By weakness and defeat he won the meed and crown, trod all our foes beneath his feet by being trodden down. What a glorious victory is represented in this story of the destruction of Dagon.